You may have noticed that MicroStrategy, the company holding over 250,000 Bitcoin, has been under massive pressure recently. And one of the most aggressive attacks came from JPMorgan, one of the pillars of the global banking establishment. Today, I'm going to explain exactly how JPMorgan is attacking MicroStrategy and why this reveals the deep-seated fear the legacy financial system has of Bitcoin. It all started when JPMorgan published a report. They claimed that companies with heavy exposure to Bitcoin, especially MicroStrategy, could be kicked out of major equity indices like the MSCI. Now, if that happens, every single fund and ETF that tracks those indices would be forced to sell their MicroStrategy shares. We're talking about billions of dollars in automatic, mandatory sell-offs. Even if investors want to hold the stock, the index rules would force them to dump it. This threat alone created a wave of panic and uncertainty across the market. But the real gut punch came next. According to several investors, JPMorgan suddenly jacked up the margin requirements for anyone using MicroStrategy shares as collateral for loans. Picture this. Before, you might have needed around 50% collateral. Overnight, JPMorgan demands 95%. So what happens next? Margin calls. Lots of them. And if you can't come up with the extra cash to cover them, the bank forces the liquidation of your shares. These forced liquidations then flood the market with sell orders, pushing the stock down aggressively. This, in turn, triggers even more margin calls, which leads to more liquidations. It's a death spiral, a cascade effect. And a financial giant like JPMorgan knows exactly how powerful this mechanism is. Now, let's look at the sequence of events. First, JPMorgan warns the market that MicroStrategy might get expelled from major indices. This makes institutions nervous, and they start reducing their exposure. The overall sentiment turns negative. Then, JPMorgan increases its margin requirements, triggering a wave of forced selling. The stock price collapses, and leveraged holders get wiped out. Is this all just a coincidence? Or is it a calculated, coordinated strike? To many analysts, this looks like classic behavior from the legacy financial system. They're using the traditional levers of power. They control indices, collateral rules, margin thresholds, to weaken a company that has become a symbol of corporate Bitcoin adoption. So why target MicroStrategy? The answer is simple. MicroStrategy is the largest institutional holder of Bitcoin on the planet. It represents a bridge between Bitcoin and corporate finance. It's a proof of concept showing that companies can hold Bitcoin as a treasury asset. It's a model that other corporations could easily copy. And for the banking system, this is an absolute nightmare scenario. Because when corporations start moving from dollars to Bitcoin, it means less reliance on banks, less dependence on fiat credit, and less need for financial intermediaries. It means less control for central banks and less exposure to their inflationary monetary policies. So what can the banks do? They attack using the tools they still control: liquidity, leverage, indices, and the financial infrastructure itself. This entire JPMorgan versus MicroStrategy episode reveals three big truths. First, Bitcoin is simply too big to ignore. Second, the legacy financial system is in full-on defensive mode. And third, the real volatility won't come from Bitcoin itself, but from the old system fighting for its very survival. This is exactly what happens every time a disruptive technology challenges an old power structure. The telecom companies fought against voice over IP. The media giants fought the internet. And now, the banks are fighting Bitcoin in the exact same way. The good news in all of this? They can attack companies, but they can't attack Bitcoin itself. A decentralized, global, incorruptible, mathematical network cannot be shut down by banks, no matter how powerful they are. And the harder they fight, the clearer it becomes that the future is already written. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights.